In this section, we're going to discuss right-hand arpeggio technique. This is the sound most associated with classical guitar playing. I'll explain what it is, teach you how to do it, and then we're going to combine it with some of our left-hand knowledge to play part of a study by Dionisio Aguado. The next thing we're going to talk about is right-hand arpeggio playing. This is the quote-unquote signature sound of classical guitar. So arpeggio means broken chord. And an example of an arpeggio would be this. Let's start with a non-broken chord. Here's a chord, and here's a broken chord. So by breaking it up, you're playing all of the different notes in the chord, but you're playing them with different fingers and you're letting the notes ring into one another. And as I said, that's the sound people think about when they think of classical guitar. Now we're going to start with one simple arpeggio that we can then add to a piece we're going to play. This simple arpeggio is called the PIMI arpeggio. It looks like this if I play on the top 3 strings. That is P, I on the second string, M on the first string, back to I. And it contains elements of things that we've already talked about in different ways. We just need to figure out how to put it all together for a right-hand arpeggio. So let's get started. The first thing is to just think about the I and M part of this arpeggio. So once again, it's P-I-M-I. And the I-M-I part is alternating strings and alternating fingers. Now, we've talked about alternating fingers way back when we talked about rest strokes. So we're just going to take that concept of alternating our fingers. One is out of the hand, one is in the hand, and we're going to put it on 2 separate strings. Then, to play free strokes, we're going to make sure our knuckles are over the strings we're playing. So I'm going to now just play, alternating my fingers on 2 different strings. First finger into the hand, middle finger comes out, middle finger gets ready to play its note, it plays, I finger comes out. Just back and forth. So experiment with that a little bit and meet me on the next video when we put together an exercise in right-hand free stroke alternation on 2 different strings for you. So now that you've got the basic idea of alternating your fingers using free strokes on 2 different strings, we're going to have a little exercise to get used to doing that on the top 2 strings and just moving the thumb similar to what we did when we first used our rest stroke, just to get used to the stretches that are going to be needed for arpeggio playing and thumb movement. So here we go. You're going to play 4 times with your thumb on the 3rd string, then it's going to move to the 4th, then it's going to move to the 5th, then it's going to move to the 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. You get the idea. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. So practice that. Make sure you're paying close attention to the form of the movements, the alternation, and not just trying to play quickly. The speed will come with precise alternations. Work on that, and then we'll go on and start talking about how the thumb plays with the fingers. In this section, we're going to discuss right-hand arpeggio technique. This is the sound most associated with classical guitar. Now that you've spent some time just alternating I and M, it's time to add the thumb in. We're going to go through this very slowly so that you can understand how the thumb and fingers interchange works. So let's start by placing our thumb on the third string, again, always out in front, index and middle on the top two strings, knuckles over the strings for free strokes. And when we play with the thumb, we're going to finish the stroke by ending on that mid joint of the first finger. Now, as we do that, then our index finger is going to play, and it's going to stay in the hand, and M is going to be on its string. Once M plays, it moves into the hand, and the index finger comes out and moves to its string. Now, once the index finger plays, the thumb is brought to the string. At this point, the index and middle fingers start to anticipate moving out, but they don't come out. They're not coming out and being placed on the strings. They're just not so far back in the hand. They're getting ready to play. So the thumb would play, and the finger's brought to the string, the index finger. The middle finger's still in the hand. Then the index finger plays, and the middle finger comes to the string. Index finger stays in the hand, middle finger plays. Index finger comes out. Index finger plays, and the thumb gets ready. So the thumb is brought to the string. Now when the thumb is getting ready to play, the fingers are in the hand. The first time I showed you was to begin a piece. In that case, you would have the fingers placed on the strings, perhaps. You could start with them all in the hand, but people like to, I think, put their fingers on the strings to make sure they know where they are when they're starting. So, if you're not starting the piece, then when the thumb plays, you have your fingers in the palm of the hand, ready to play. So, here's what it looks like without me talking if I go very slowly. In the next video, I'm going to take you through a simple exercise to practice that with thumb moving to different strings. So this exercise that combines the thumb and the fingers is pretty similar to the exercise that just had the fingers alternating with the thumb moving to different strings. The difference is that this time the thumb is actually going to play notes on those different strings. So we're going to play with the thumb on the third, and then we're going to do our I part of the arpeggio, and then we'll move to the fourth string with the thumb, I, fifth, I, sixth, and work our way back up. So here we go. Ready, go. Now you can vary that. You could do 4 on each string before you move to the next string. You could do 2 on each string. You could do a whole practice session just on the thumb on the third string, just the fourth string, the fifth string. You get the idea. If you find that there are particular passages or particular strings, I should say, where the thumb is not as comfortable as others, spend more time on those as well. Dionisio Aguado is the composer of the etude we're going to work on next. He was born in 1784 and died in 1849. That makes him a classical period and early romantic period musician. He was very important for the evolution of the guitar. His new method for guitar, published in 1825, talks about the importance of fingernails, as well as a tripod device that he created to hold up the guitar. The idea was to get the guitar away from the guitarist's body so that it would be louder. The body of the player would not dampen the sound of the guitar. As we discussed earlier, the guitar in the classical period was a parlor instrument and much smaller. So his use of fingernails as well as his device were both ideas for solving the volume problem on the guitar. Obviously, with Tariga coming later, the guitar grew into a larger size. But this tripod is very similar to the device that I have on my leg. Now, his most well-known concert piece is the Rondo, Opus 2, Number 2. If you have a chance to hear the great guitarist Julian Bream perform it, I encourage you to check it out. We're going to go and play this etude of his, and this etude is using this PIMI arpeggio that we just discussed. It also gives us an opportunity to add in some of our left-hand positions that we've discussed earlier. One and two and. So let's begin learning this Estudio by Aguado. So you already know how to play the PIMI arpeggio. Now it's just a matter of combining it with the left hand positions. Now I just want to take a moment and talk about the importance of left hand playing in arpeggios. Many guitarists make the mistake of getting fixated on the arpeggio passage and spending all of their time practicing very diligently, and then don't spend very much time at all on the left hand. And because of this, there are some synchronization issues when you go to put together your finely tuned arpeggio in the right hand, but your undisciplined left hand, we'll say. So I suggest that as we go through this, you pay very close attention to these different left hand positions that we've discussed along the way. And we're also going to do this in little chunks, and this is going to explain to you how I would actually practice this, because I would not sit down and play from the beginning to the end of the piece when I'm first learning this. I would only be playing little bits where I can keep track of everything that I'm doing before I play it. That is, I like to say my brain would be ahead of my fingers. So let's get started. We're going to have our third finger on the third string, second fret, the A, and we're going to have our second finger on the second string, first fret. So we're playing A and C, and we're going to be using the open E. Now, all the way through this arpeggio passage, the index and middle fingers are going to stay exclusively on the top two strings. I only plays the second string and M only plays the first string. The thumb will move from string to string. So we have this chord, and we're in angled in, and it happens twice. So we're going to just play it once. And if we get that right, then we're going to take our time, we're going to reset the right hand. And you can play it twice. Now, since you don't have anything to do in the left hand, that would be a perfectly fine thing to do because all you have to focus on is your right hand arpeggio. Now, after the second one of these, then you go on and you have the next chord shape. And the next chord shape simply is moving from the third finger playing the A on the third string second fret, to the third string first finger playing G sharp. Put it together and it's... Now in practicing this, I like to play and then stop right after I play the first note of the next arpeggio. So what do I mean? Let me show you. I prefer to do this. And think about the next arpeggio that I'm playing, as opposed to stopping after the arpeggio. If I take a little mental break here, I'm not training myself to think ahead about what comes next. So I like to take that little mental break, if you will, and reset my hands and all, after I play the first note of the next chord shape. I'm also going to take a moment and say that the melody for this piece is in the thumb. So as we're playing, you're going to hear... Keep that in the back of your thinking as you're playing. It may be a lot to think about this first time you're going through this, but when you come back to this and perhaps revisit this part of the course, you may think about that more. So let's move on. So we have this. And here, we only have one finger on the neck. Now you could say, well, I'm in parallel position because I'm only using one finger. Or if you know what's coming next, which is placing the second finger down here, you could be thinking that you're going to stay in angled in. You're here, angled in, and then you're going to go to the fourth string second fret, second finger, and you're going to play here, and so you're continuing your angled in. Once again, you are playing only index strokes on the second string and middle finger strokes on the first string. So after that, then we use this chord shape that we've practiced over here in the past, and we're going to apply it right here. So we play here, and we would stop right there. And then once you're comfortable with getting that arpeggio together, then just add in the third finger note. The third finger will be played on the third fret of the second string, and the fourth finger will be playing on the fourth fret of the third string. Now, if you play another style of music, you may be thinking about chord shapes as having to all be placed at the same time. The fingers all must be down at once. In classical guitar playing, you actually get a little break. You get to only put down the fingers you need when you're playing arpeggios. If you're playing a chord like in the Milan Pavan, you don't get to do that. But here in arpeggio playing, you get to put one finger down, and you can delay for a second until you get the next finger down. So here we are. Playing this chord shape twice. After this, we go back down to the original starting notes, but we're using different fingering. Instead of using this, we're going to be here with the second finger on the third string, second fret, and the first finger on the first fret of the second string. And then we're going to play the open A string, fifth string. So this is about the first half of the piece. So let me put the whole thing together very slowly so you can see what it is that we've done. Now, once again, you might be just practicing just to get one arpeggio at a time comfortable before you go on. And it might look like this if you're practicing. While you're building the whole thing up and getting all the coordination together. But let's get back to how much we've covered so far. So let me just play it slowly for you. So that's the first half. Now from here, we have the second finger down and the first finger down we've already discussed. You're going to keep them down because what happens next involves them and also gives you an opportunity to move some fingers around. This is a really fun part of the piece. So you're going to play your PIMA arpeggio. Then you lift the second finger off, and you're going to move it to the second string, second fret. Then from here, you're going to put your third and fourth fingers down, and you're going to be in transverse position here, and you're going to use opposed motion to get the first finger down. Then you just lift the third finger off and you play the fourth finger and the first finger notes that you have here. The fourth finger on the third fret of the second string and the first finger on the first fret of the first string. So let's just take that little bit here. So that is now, one little thing to cover before we go on, and that is, again, when you play from here to here, you have one finger down. Now, if you thought about this as I'm in parallel position, you would put it this way. But your next move, right, is to transverse here. And so you can start to set up for transverse position with the second finger. So now, from here, we just have the end of the piece. We take the third finger, which we just lifted, and we move it, and we move the whole hand down. We're going to shift down so that our third finger is going to be on the fourth string, second fret, and our second finger is going to be on the second string, first fret. And then we're going to play G sharp, third string, first fret, and we end by going back to the same chord we started with, and we're going to use the second finger at the third string, second fret, and we're going to use the first finger on the second string, first fret, and a final low A on the fifth string with your thumb. So here's the last bit put together, or the second half, actually. I'm sorry, let's use the correct fingering here. And to end the piece, I like to do a little bit of what's called a ritardando. And that is you just slow everything down. So going into the final few chords here. So congratulations again. Now you've added arpeggio playing to your left-hand positions, and you sound like a real classical guitarist. What I want you to know is that the aguado piece that we just worked on has a second half to it. And I've attached to our course the piece in its entirety in standard notation and tab. There's absolutely nothing that's new. I think when you look at it, you'll be able to figure out all of the left-hand positions pretty quickly. And the right hand is still exactly the same as before. I want you to keep working on this and develop your accuracy, your control, and with time, your speed. And if you keep working on it, perhaps you can get it a little faster, maybe something like this. The final piece in our course is a pavane by the Renaissance composer Louise Milan. This piece is a miniature masterpiece. It's a concert work that you will hear classical guitarists who make a living giving concerts perform from time to time. So congratulations to you for getting to this point. Now we're going to take a bit of a different approach in learning this piece. First, you'll hear me perform it in its entirety. Then we're going to break it down into its 7 sections, or in the Renaissance, these 7 sections, which we would know as phrases, are called strains, S-T-R-A-I-N-S. And I'm going to have you learn each one of them as if it was a piece in and of itself. First, a little bit more about Milan, so you know what a pavane is and who he was. So Milan roughly lived between 1500 and 1561. He performed and wrote music on an instrument called the vihuela, which is kind of a Spanish lute-like instrument. His most important set of compositions are contained in the book El Maestro from 1536, which is an instructional book on how to play the vihuela. You've gotten a taste for the sounds within this piece while working on the 6th strain during our chord exercise. Now it's time to take on the whole piece. One, two, three, four. The first strain of the Milan pavane begins with a transverse position chord. And then you move this 3rd finger down to the first finger playing G sharp on the 3rd string 1st fret. And you're going to be playing the 6th string E instead of the A from the previous chord. After that, you then go back to the transverse position and put your first finger down in opposed motion in one of the chords that we've been practicing, this A minor chord shape. And then after that, we go back to the chord we previously played with our first finger on the G sharp and our second finger on the 4th string 2nd fret, low E. So if you just take this part of the line, it sounds like this. All the way through, the second finger stays down. And so that would put most of your thinking about how to play this into transverse with maybe a little angled in, or possibly just keeping your finger right there and not really thinking about an angle. And then back to transverse with the opposed motion, and then back again. Now you also want to pay attention to the rhythm and to the melody. So the rhythm, let's start with the rhythm. It's going to be 2 counts, and then each note after that gets 1 count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. At the same time, the melody is the top note of each chord, and you're simply going to play it, or you're going to bring that out of the chord, and it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, how you bring the chord, or the melody out of the chord, I should say, is just a matter of partly listening, making sure you can hear that in the chord, and making sure that you follow through enough to bring it out. Going on after this, the next measure begins with us playing this chord, also an E major chord, we could call it, if we're thinking in chords. And then after this, you have a succession of eighth notes that are melody notes. You have an open E, then you have this second finger on the third string second fret, A, and then open B, first finger on the first fret of B, C, and then you have D with the fourth finger on the third fret of the second string to an A finger. Now these are all going to be done with free strokes. Now you've worked on free strokes with arpeggios and individually. Now you're just going to put them together. together to play a little scale. Worked on free strokes with arpeggios and individually. Now you're just going to put them together to play a little scale. The counting in this measure is, this is beat 1, this chord, and then these are going to be played as their eighth notes. Now again, you don't have to know what that means, except that you're going to have 2 notes per count. So it would be 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. So 1, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and 1. If you just listen to the rhythm, you'll get a lot of exactly how it needs to sound, and you don't have to get caught up in counting. There are other resources to help you learn how to play more rhythmically, and as you go on in your studies of a classical guitar, you'll become more familiar with counting and playing. But for right now, we want to just make sure we get the rhythm right, even if we don't know where the counting should go. So again, after this measure, now we're back to our chord formula that we've learned before. So we have our angled out with 4 notes. And then we're going to go to angled in, and we're going to play 4 notes. I, M, and A are going to be on the top 3 strings, and the thumb is still going to be on the 5th string. And then we go back to that angled out chord shape, then to our transverse with our first finger, and then back to the E shape that we just discussed earlier. So that's the first strain. As you've noticed, there are lots of bits here that we've worked on previously, and a few little new things to think about. Once you feel like you're able to play that comfortably, time for the second strain. The second strain has lots of familiar material, but first we have something new. We're going to grab this angled in chord that we've been playing very often during this course, and we're going to either pluck the strings all at once, or you can roll the chord. Rolling means that you are not arpeggiating, but you are not playing the chord all at the same time. So you just play the thumb note, index, middle, ring, P-I-M-A, and you could do this by placing all of the fingers down before you start, and then just playing one of them at a time. Now, the speed at which you roll a chord depends upon what is going on in the piece. In this case, you have to roll it a little quick, because what comes after it are eighth notes again. This time we play them in the thumb. So the counting for this is 1 and 2 and 3. And the notes we're playing, all with the thumb, are that C, that's part of our angled in, open D, then 4th string 2nd fret, E, 4th finger on F sharp, and then we move to the 3rd string for the open E. So your melody here is just this ringing, and at the same time as you do that, then you have this bass line. Now, one musical thing you can do when you become comfortable enough in your playing of this to think about such things is to crescendo, get louder. So begin maybe, and then rise up with sound. So once you do that, then the melody comes back in the upper voice. And so here, we're using the fourth finger to play D with the second string, so third fret here. Then we're going to play open E on the first string, and we're going to use I for this D and M for this E. At the same time, we're playing our third finger on C. You know this very well. So, and then we play the C. So, now here, after this, we move to our angled out chord that's very familiar to us. So we're going to play thumb here, I on the third string, and M on the second string. And we're not going to roll this. And then we're going to go back to our first finger to play the C on the second string, then open B on the second string. And then we're going to put our third finger down on the third string, second fret. The whole time you're doing this, the second finger will be down on the second fret of the fifth string here. So the counting of all of this from the beginning is straight eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and through 2 measures. Listen. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Now when you get here, we're going to play, once again, a set of chords that you're already familiar with. It's going to start with something slightly different. You need to get your fourth finger over to the sixth string third fret because your third finger is currently tied up holding this note down. So you're going to bring your fourth finger over. So this is angled in. So you're moving from transverse here to angled in. And you're going to play the open fourth, third, and second strings. Then we go back to our favorite angled out chord, to our transverse with opposed motion, A minor, to our angled in that we've been practicing. And then we go back to transverse, and it's just like the end of the strain that we worked on previously, where we have second finger on fourth string, second fret, and third finger on third string, second fret, E and A, open B, open E, playing all 4 notes, P, I, M, A, and then we're just going to play G sharp with our first finger, and then we put everything down here. And the counting here again is going to be just like it was when we first learned this. All these notes get 1 count. Except the final 2. So if I play the entire line slowly with counting, you can hear how the rhythm goes together. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the end of the second strain. Once you've got that, then we go on to the third strain. Strain 3 is very much like strain 2. They start exactly the same. The difference here is that strain 3 ends differently than strain 2. So I'm going to start by playing through the beginning of strain 3 up to where things are different than strain 2. So here we go, strain 3. Now, in strain 3, the next thing we do is go and play here, etc. We're now going to grab the same note and play the same open strings, but we're still going to continue playing these eighth notes. The melody in this continues on. That would be the melody that strain 2 has up until this part. Here is what the melody sounds like when we keep going. Now there are more notes underneath that. So let's take it a little slow and figure out where everything is played. So once again, I'll just get you to where we need to start. Here. So this is beat 3, and we're going to count 3 and 4 and. So we're going to play here. Third finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, the G, open, 4, 3, 2, and then we're going to use our M finger to play a free stroke on C sharp, 2nd fret, 2nd string. And then we're going to play our 3rd finger, D, open E. Then we're going to grab a chord which we have not discussed before. If you're familiar with chords, this is a D chord. The melody is going to be this note up here. And the configuration for this is going to be open D, 1st finger on 3rd string, 2nd fret, 3rd finger on 2nd string, 3rd fret, and 2nd finger on 2nd fret, 1st string. Now this chord can be thought of as transverse, because it has these 2 fingers down, or it could be thought of as angled out. Now, once again, you don't want to get so caught up in what is it that you forget to actually just play it. Whatever helps you think about it and make you a better guitar player playing this set of notes, that's what you should choose. Now, what's also interesting is that the 3rd finger was just played. So it's going to be in the vicinity of where you need to play it again. So let's take a look at how we get here. So there's how you get from one spot to the next. Again, we've talked through how to alternate your fingers to play these notes. We've talked about where these notes are. Let's just do a little counting. So 3 and 4 and 1. Now after this, you're just going to hold these notes down, 1, and then you put your 4th finger down with your A finger. You just played with your A finger to play all 4 of these notes in this chord shape. And then you're going to use A again. Now, the next note, you just let go of everything and slide up to the 5th fret of the 1st string. Hold this note down as you play it. As this note's ringing, there's notes being played underneath it. So here, you're going to put your 3rd finger down on the 3rd string, 5th fret. So you're in transverse position here. And then you shift down with the 3rd finger, holding the 4th finger still in place, and you're going to play with the 1st finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret. Now, as you do this, musically, you want to make sure that you keep this inner voice quieter. So you want this. Not keep the inner voice on the inside of sound, if you will. So after you do this, then you just have one more melody note to play by itself before the melody has a harmony underneath it. So here's what comes next. Fourth finger slides down, right? Now you don't want to maintain, when you make these movements with the third finger and the fourth finger, you want to let go of the pressure on the string and just move your finger down. You don't want to maintain tension, and you don't want to lift so far up that it's hard to find the next note. So is how you'd play it. Again, making sure you get to the high edge of the fret with these notes so that they don't buzz. So A finger here, and then you're going to play a final chord. The fourth finger slides back up to the A, and then we're going to play with the fifth string open with the thumb, fourth string, second fret, and third string, second fret. What we're doing is we're taking the tip of our finger here, and we're just putting it down. Not the whole thing, just a little tip. And your tip is flexible, so you can just put it down and let it just collapse. So is in the melody. And then you play it again. So and the counting here is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's strain 3. Obviously, strain 4 is going to come next when you're ready. So strain 4 begins with the same note that you just played at the end of strain 3. Keep this fourth finger down. To end strain 3, you played this chord. And you had your thumb on the fifth string, your index finger playing the fourth string, and your middle finger playing the third string. Now, keeping that fourth finger down, you're going to go back to that transverse position that we played before. So the third finger is going to go to the third string, 5th fret. And you're going to play those notes, and you're going to also play the first finger on the third string of the third fret of the 4th string. So put it together and you have F, C, and A. And you're going to play thumb, index, ring, PIA. Now, the next notes are played with the first finger. You're going to hold these notes down, let them ring, and you're going to play that F. Then you're going to play a C, 5th string, 3rd fret, and then you're going to go back to the F. So, and the counting here is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. After this, we have some eighth notes, and we have an interesting and fun interplay between the top melody line and the bass. So here's what happens next. So on beat 4, 4 and 1, we're going to play with our fourth finger. We're going to take our fourth finger, which was here, and we slide it again down 2 frets. We're going to play on the 3rd fret, G, and we're going to use our M finger, rest stroke. And then we're going to use our I finger, rest stroke, to play on the 1st fret, playing an F. So our melody is this. The E part of the melody is contained within this angled in chord we know quite well. So here's what we have so far. And so the counting is 4 and 1. Now while this is being held down, the 3 and the 1, we're going to then take our A finger, and we're going to play a rest stroke here with our 4th finger here on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, the G. That's beat 2, so 2 and 3. So the melody then switches. It's kind of a call and response, if you will, where you have and then you play with the thumb, the open D string, and then 2nd finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret, all while holding this 4th finger down. Having this note ringing is what makes this sound so great. So now, after you play the D and the E, you're going to hold the 2nd finger down, and while that's being held down and ringing, then you're going to lift the 4th finger, put the 1st finger down, and play F to E with M and I. 1st fret, open, 1st string. So this measure then, with counting thus far, is 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So the next part, as you see, you add in the 4th finger playing F sharp on the 4th string, 4th fret, and then playing the open 3rd string G. So, now let's put all that together. From the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and then going on. So going on, we play the open 3rd string with our thumb, and then the final interplay happens now. we're going to use M and I to play D and C on the second string, third fret with our fourth finger, down to the second string, first fret, first finger, and then the final response in the bass is and that is third finger playing F natural, third fret, fourth string, fourth string, second fret, and then fourth string open. And then we end with our familiar angled in C shape. So, let me give you everything up to there so you can hear the full interplay nice and slow. Do that. There we are. And the counting of all of that is, again, straight eighth notes once we get started with the interplay. So let me do that whole thing again with counting now, just to make sure you've got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now from here, a bunch of familiar chords are coming at you. So it's 4, and then our angled out 1, back to our angled in. Now this is the first time we're actually going to play a note on the fourth string with our second finger. This is the E part of the C chord. Now here, you need to hold this note down as we play here. We're going to put our third finger on the sixth string, third fret, the G, and we're going to play the open D and the open G. We want this note to ring through. Now the idea here, musically, is that this note is part of this chord, the C chord, but it's not part of this chord. So by having it ring, we have a little bit of tension. And then the next note that we play is going to be the second string open with our ring finger, our A, and that is the note that fits with the rest of these notes. So you hear this resolution of sound, if you will. So you have, aha, it feels good. And then we end with this chord shape, the C shape that we played a moment ago. So the final part with counting, starting on beat 4 after the interplay, is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the fourth strain. Once you've got that down, well, you know what's coming next, the fifth strain. So, meet me on the next video and we'll talk about strain number 5. Strain 5 is a bit of a different animal. In this, we're going to use our thumb and our index finger to play scales. Now, there's two reasons to do this. One is it's a better fit for the sound that this piece is looking for. In early music, if you're playing scales, you're using thumb and index finger. The second one is that your scale playing may not be ready with rest strokes to play at the speed required to play this passage at tempo. So you could put the rest strokes in and make them sound great. In the meantime, it might be fun to be able to just plug and play, if you will, the thumb and index. So let me take you through how you do this. So this chord that you're going to start with is exactly the same chord that you'd begin strain 4 with. You've got the fourth finger on the 5th fret of the first string, and the third finger is at the 5th fret of the 3rd string, transverse position with the opposed motion, 1st finger note. And that's going to be on the 4th string, 3rd fret. Now, after you play these, you just move the 4th finger down to the 1st string, 3rd fret. After that, you're then going to play with the index finger, playing the 1st finger note on the 1st fret, and then playing the open E with your thumb. Then you're going to play the next notes all on the 2nd string, and that is going to be with your index finger free stroke, thumb, and open B. So 3-1-0, D, C, B. And then you're going to finish this scale passage by playing the 3rd string, 2nd fret with your 1st finger. So if we put this in context, it's a little quicker than the rest of the piece. So you have, if you're counting 8th notes, 1 and 2 and, you're going to hear 2 of these notes in this scale in each 8th note. So 1 and 2 and 3. You may want to listen to that a few times just to get an idea of how it fits. Now, when you're done here with the 1st finger on the A, then you're going to use your A finger and you're going to grab this 5th fret, 1st string A here. Then you're going to slide down and you're going to have this chord, which is angled in, if you will, with this opposition with the 4th finger that you just moved. And you're going to play with P, I, and M. You're going to play 4th string, 2nd fret, 2nd string, 1st fret, and 4th finger on that G, P, I, M. Then you're going to play open D, and here you're going to play F, 1st fret, E string. And then we're going back to our familiar angled in shape, our C shape. And we have our thumb on the 5th string, and we have index, middle, ring on the top 3, as you know. So if we put that much of it together, here's what it looks like. And with counting, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now here, you get to play another scale. So we're playing here that angled in C shape. After this, you're going to play on the 3rd string, 4th fret with your 4th finger. Take your thumb, and you're going to play the B, and then you're going to play 3rd string, 2nd fret A, and then 3rd string open. So far. Then we move to the 4th string, and we're going to play this 3rd finger on F at the 3rd fret. Then we go to the 4th string, 2nd fret for E. Then we play the open D. And then we end with the thumb on the 5th string, 3rd fret, the C. Then we play, again with the A finger on the 1st string, we play an open E now. So, if we put this together from here, and then after this, we then go to our angled out chord that we're very familiar with, and you're going to play P on the 5th string, I on the 3rd, and M on the 2nd string. Then we're going to play the open 5th string and 1st finger on the C here, which is the B string, 1st fret. And then we move, take our 3rd finger, bring it back to that G on the 6th string, 3rd fret, and we're going to play 2 open strings. We're going to play it with our M finger on the 3rd string open and our A finger on the 2nd string open. And then we're going to take our index finger and play the open 5th string. And then we finish this with the same formula that the previous strain had. We grab this C chord, right, this angled in, and then we hold down our 1st finger and we play with our 3rd finger here, 6th string, 3rd fret, and the open 4th string D and the open 3rd string G, P-I-M, and we take our A finger, we play the open B, and then we move back to that chord again. And that's the rest of the strain. So let me take you through the entire thing with counting. And that is the entire thing being the entire second half here. Second scale going on. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now I'll just play through the entire strain, nice and slow, no talking. Once you've got this, we go on to the 6th strain, and the 6th strain is one you know quite well. So you already know this 6th strain. So I'm just going to take you through it once nice and slow without saying anything, and then once with counting. With counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing I'd remind you of before we go on to the final strain here is just keep your ear on the melody all the way through this strain. Going on, the 7th and final strain. We're almost there, the 7th and final strain. Now this strain has lots of material that you've already heard before in lots of different parts of the piece. You might think of this as a little bit of a consolidation of the rest of the piece. There are a few things that we haven't done before in the piece. So let me just take you through it again. The beginning of this strain is exactly like the 2nd and 3rd. So I'll just play it for you, and then we'll go on. Now, that's exactly like the previous two strains that had that passage in it, strains 2 and strains 3. The end of this has the eighth notes continuing and one little quick movement. So at the end of what we just played, you're in this position with the third finger here. Now what comes next is this chord shape. You've seen it before, but our third finger is right here. So what we do is we just have to make a quick movement here. Sometimes in our guitar fingerings, we don't have the finger that we need next free. So you have to practice being very smooth with your movements so that you don't hear a lack of sound. Now, if you've been holding down this note through this bit of the passage, when you pick up the third finger, you should still hear something ringing. And this is, I like to think of this as a little guitarist's sleight of hand, or not an optical, but an aural illusion that classical guitarists can use often. And that is, if you have to pick up a finger and stop something from ringing, if something else is ringing, the audience and the listener will perceive that the correct note is still ringing. So listen to this. When I picked up this finger and started to move, I still kept this finger down, and maybe, just maybe, you didn't hear too much of a break in sound. So when you practice this passage, you might try to do that yourself. Just practice. See if you can make sure that everything connects. Now the melody you would be listening for would be, so you're here, as we've discussed, with this beautiful legato. Legato is the classical music term for long, as in long notes. So after you're playing here, then you're going to play with your first finger on the second string, first fret, middle finger in the right hand, the M finger. And then you're going to go back to our well-known angled out chord. You're going to play the fifth string with your thumb. You're going to play the open fourth string with your index finger, with your I finger. And then you're going to play with your ring finger, your A finger, playing the D, the third fret of the second string with your fourth finger. Then you lift the fourth finger off and you play the melody, open B, holding the second finger down still. This is with your M finger. Now from here, you're going to move to a miniature version of that transverse opposed motion first finger chord, the A minor chord. So we're here, but we only use the second finger and the first finger. So we play, and then we play open, fifth string, and then we go to the fourth string, second fret, with the second finger, and then we have the first finger on the first string, second fret. And we're going to play this with PIA. Then we're going to play the open B again, middle finger. And then we go to this chord, which we know well, 4-3-1 on fifth string, fifth fret, third finger on the fourth string, fourth fret, and third string, first fret. From here, we've done this before, right? Transverse. So let me play all of that through for you with counting and then without saying anything. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 stop the strings. So I'll leave you now with the final strain played with no talking. Now that you've completed the entire course, before we go, I'd like to just give you a couple of practice tips to keep you focused on improving. They're pretty simple, but it's important to share them. The first one is I like to time all of the different aspects of my practice routine. I want to know how long it takes for me to work on my right hand, say, scales, my left hand synchronizations, my free. Now that you've completed the entire course, before we go, I'd like to just give you a couple of practice tips to keep you focused on improving. They're pretty simple, but it's important to share them. The first one is I like to time all of the different aspects of my practice routine. I want to know how long it takes for me to work on my right hand, say, scales, my left hand synchronizations, my free stroke exercises, etc. So the first time I'll go through them, I'll use a timer, literally. And that way, I know if I only have 30 minutes to practice today, I know what I can get through and I know what I can't. This also helps me make sure that I actually arrive on time to many things that I need to, because once I get a guitar in my hands, sometimes my sense of time goes away. Yours might too. It's a wonderful thing for us, but not those who are waiting for us. The second thing is it's more important to go very slowly and make sure that you can think ahead of the movements that you're about to make before you play. Our goal is not only to play accurately, but also to play comfortably and with ease. And the best way that I've found to achieve that is to just go slow at first. Take my time. As we've discussed in this course, many times I've suggested that you pause before you make a movement, say crossing strings, for example. I like to apply that to everything that I practice. That way, I'm just building up good technique and I'm building up this ease in which I'm playing so that my nervous system isn't very uncomfortable while I'm playing. And finally, have fun. You've worked very hard to get to the point where you've done all of the exercises and studied all of the pieces here. Now, enjoy your playing. Before we go, yet again, I'd like to say congratulations, and I'd also like to say thank you for taking the time to pick up this course and go through it. It's been a lot of fun figuring out how to get from never having played classical guitar before to playing a Milan Pavan. It's been very exciting for me to put this course together and guide you through it. Before we go, I would like to say a few thanks. First, I would like to thank D'Addario Strings. I'm an endorsee for them, and I exclusively play on their strings. I'm using the EXP hard tension strings right now and used throughout this course. I'd also like to say thank you to Jackson and Connor, a men's shop in Northampton, Massachusetts, in the United States. They did a wonderful job of providing me with my wardrobe and helping me achieve my classical style, if you will. I'd also like to thank Benjamin Killip Leonard for his finale wizardry and expertise. He was very important and instrumental in providing the tab and guitar notation, which will ultimately become your guitar files. I also am playing a guitar made by the Irish guitar builder Michael O'Leary. This is a cedar top guitar, and he makes spruce top guitars as well. Finally, I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to find out more from me, my website address is www.andrew-leonard.com. You can contact me there, or you can contact me through social media. I'd love to hear from you and find out how you're doing with the course. So, once again, thanks and congratulations.